listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
Happy New Year, new decade, and boy do I have some stuff for you. Well, hey there. Welcome to a special New Year's edition of the Alchemy for Life podcast. That's why you're hearing it on a Thursday, if you're hearing it when it's first released, and you're one of the smart people who also gets the email and the article. And if so, thank you. If you're listening to this having your coffee and you're hungover, then as always, I will speak softly. If you are listening to this later on, then that's cool too. Either way, Happy New Year, Happy 2020, and Happy New Decade. And on that front, I want to say a few things. Before I go on, I always have these two formats. I have the 10-minute format, which is what I'm doing now, and then I have the 45 to an hour format when I interview really cool people. I might break that in this one because this might get a little bit longer, so bear with me, but there's going to be a number of parts to this because, it's kind of a wrap up and it's a moving forward and all that wonderful stuff. So, first of all, for those of you who like to mark off things and have this clean slate and say, well, it's a Monday, it's a new week, or it's the morning, I got a new fresh day, or it's New Year's, it's a new year, or in this case, it's a new decade. Good for you. You go ahead and use that clean slate. I mean, it's really a hypothetical construct that humans create emotionally and so forth. And we can argue about what time is also, but that's great if that's what you do. So please use it to your advantage. Take advantage of the fact that, everyone's doing that sort of thing. But please don't be one of those person that goes, I'm trying to think of a more appropriate phrase than balls to the wall. Sorry. Don't be one of those people who goes for it and goes 100% for 3 days, because you're going to be surrounded by people who suddenly have a change in attitude and suddenly are happier, but seem more stressed and are more professional and they handle things better and they have, they're all together and it's all about me and blah, blah, blah. And then in a week from now, they're all ordering a pizza. Don't be one of those people, okay? Don't get high on life for like 24 hours and then go, man, this high on life stuff is bullshit. So instead, do something else. And that brings us to don't make resolutions. Yeah, I can hear the eye rolling. Don't make resolutions. I've said this before, and if you're a listener that or you've read some of my stuff, you know what I mean by that. If it's something that's a one-off, something that you can just tick, that's fine. You want to check a box, that works. But for those things that have been really bothering you, these long-term things, then you're going to need something special in place. You're going to need a system, right? Because if you don't have the time, if you can't muster the energy, and if you don't possess the resources to make something happen, that's probably why it's not happening. And this is, of course, basic stuff, right? If you know this, you know this. And I'm repeating myself for the 50th time. But if you don't know this, you may think, oh, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I guess that's why I don't work out. That's why I don't do this. That's why I'm never going to accomplish that project. That's why I'm never going to learn that new skill, because I don't make the time for it, or I can't afford it, or, I'm just exhausted. So that's what the whole balance sheet was all about. That's where that all came from. So if you stop listening at the minute mark, then I'm just going to say, subscribe to this podcast, fill out the balance sheet, buy the Alchemy for Life book, and go for it and say new decade, yay. Okay, if you want to hear some more, let's talk about a new decade and a new start. And let me tell you two really exciting things. First of all, moving forward, I'm going to have even more guests that are going to surprise you. See, I was so excited there, I couldn't say surprise. I'm going to have even more guests that make you go, wow, how'd you get that person? In fact, I got a call from someone that literally said, how the hell did you get Scott Adams on your show? I expect more calls like that because I have a couple guests right now lined up that are definitely going to surprise you. One that I'm actually going to be talking to in literally I think literally today, if you're listening to this on Thursday, and if you're listening later than that, I think it's already in the can, hopefully, is somebody who is not only a presidential candidate, but has a very, very interesting history. So I'm really looking forward to that discussion. That should really be an eye-opener. And I plan to have even more chats like that. And as always with my chats, my guests are also surprised that we have this very cordial, insightful conversation, because I really don't like I have 10 questions to ask you. And as I've said before, oh, that's a really interesting, deep, and thought-provoking thing. So I hear you also have a cat. I don't want to do that. I want to kind of dive deep with people, and I want to let them tell me the things that I think you want to know. And in fact, that's sort of, I hear you and I see you behind me looking over my shoulder saying, Mark, ask him this, ask him that, or wait, I always wanted to know this, or wait, why does that do that, or why does that person do that? So it's important to me to sort of ask the questions that I think if you were trapped in an elevator with this person and had the ability to pretty much ask them anything, those are the kind of things that I would like to ask them on your behalf. In addition to new and even more exciting and interesting guests from not only all over the world, but all sorts of walks of life, there will be at least one book, and, who am I kidding? There's probably going to be a good 3 books this year from me. To those of you who have purchased the Sword and the Sunflower, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, honestly. It really means a lot to me. It also means a lot to me if you have actually read it and enjoyed it and go to Amazon and rate it, Amazon or Goodreads. I really appreciate that a lot because the feedback certainly helps me. And with a podcast and other things like this, you're sort of in a one-way relationship, and I don't like the one-way relationship. I want it to be two-way. I want you to give me feedback, just like the feedback I get on the podcast. So you have something to say, you have a question to ask, you want to say, this is awesome, but could this be different? Or I have a question about that. Please, you have like 20 ways to contact me, and it's in this podcast, it's in the books. So after I'm done beating that dead horse, we'll leave it alone. So thank you again. New books coming. And as I've said in the podcast Stolen Validation, and also the Stolen Validation about writing a book and how that feels and telling people about it before it's written, I don't like to talk about something unless I have nailed it, unless it's done. Because I don't want all the kudos and, oh, that's great, you're doing that. And I don't want to get caught up in that before I've actually done it, because that's a great way to fail. But I want to give you the first chance to know that there may be an additional podcast in 2020. I have had numerous people, in fact, most people who've heard this podcast and know me and have talked to me about not only the Alchemy for Life book, but actually people who've seen me speak and talk to me further, have told me that there's another genre that I would do really well in and that people would really want to hear from me on. So I may introduce a new podcast. I'm telling you here first. And if I do, I'll tell you first where to find it and so forth. It'll be a different genre than this. So it may or may not be for you if you are here for time, energy, and resources. It's going to be different than that. And now that we've done all that, we've sort of been brought all the way up to speed and moving forward. I don't want to just end it here at the 6-minute mark and say, hey, well, thanks for letting me talk about my stuff. Now I want to tell you something really kind of crazy. As you know, I talk about time, energy, and resources all the time. I truly believe that that's what life's made of, and the only other thing might be desire. So I want to touch on something kind of crazy. It's one of those statements when you hear it, you'll be like, well, yeah, duh. But then later on, you're going to think about it and go, okay, I'm creeped out a little bit. So let's talk about fourth dimension and messages from you to you. So the key to all this is time. And in saying this, I've already lost you because you're already sick of hearing me say time, energy, and resources, make time, wasting time. Everyone makes time for what is most important to them, all that stuff. But stay with me, because this is different. It's not about making time, and it's not even about scheduling time. It's about you listening to you when you are at your smartest. If you're hungover today, that probably isn't right now. So everyone tells you to live in the moment. But that's exactly what's preventing you from losing weight, accomplishing that thing, or feeling better. See, I told you that I was going to say some crazy stuff, but just stay with me. You take the moment, you take in this moment, and then your brain considers the best course of action, right? Nope. Because see, that's just a tiny voice in a huge cathedral in your head. There's a loud symphony of emotions, good and bad, the effects of food and other substances. I mean, even caffeine, if you're a smoker, that all can affect that moment as well. And though just another emotion, desire plays a huge part in this as well, and can and sometimes does have the loudest voice. Then there's the part of you that wants to plan and can just plan away what it is you were supposed to do right now. I know I have a huge part of me that just is in love with logistics and planning stuff. We are constantly three people: our past, our present, and future selves. We are the past to our future. We are the present to our mindful mind, and we are the future to our past selves. And that last one is key to everything. If everything you are doing right now is because of your present mind, you will never make the progress you've wanted to make. If right now you realize that you want to lose weight, you can't. No, seriously, you can't lose weight right now. It's impossible unless you lose a limb. If you want to lose 50 pounds, then you have to plan to lose it. Yes, you can eat less if you literally have your fork in your hand. But that's as close to your present self telling your present self to lose weight. Instead, you have to make some sort of plan, remind yourself, join a club, get a meal plan, etc. And what do all these things have in common from where we are standing right now? They are all in the future. Every single one of them. I mean, mentally that seems obvious, but kind of a bit shocking, isn't it? It's all in the future. And you can argue that it's a state of being, that it's a mindset. But I will remind you that you don't have that state of being or mindset. And that's why you aren't accomplishing this. So we are talking about you before you've engaged the mindset, if that indeed is even a thing. And you can fight me on that. So what I'm talking about is sending yourself a message that you will listen to. If you can send your future self that you will become a message that your future self will listen to, then you get to have everything you want. Everything you want that is based on a set of actions that you have been unable to perform. Think about that. And let's agree on this. If you could snap your fingers and make yourself perform a set of actions to do a thing, wouldn't you always do this? If you had a magic word that you could use with 100% success rate that would cause you to do a thing that you want to do, wouldn't you always take advantage of that? Come on, right? What do you have to lose? There's no downside. Of course you would. It would be like cheating. You snap your fingers and poof. But if you could snap your fingers and start doing that thing starting right now, you would still have to wait days, weeks, or even years in some cases to see the results. So even with this magic ability to just do it, there wouldn't be much instant gratification, would there? However, if you could snap your fingers and start doing that a month ago, you would instantly see the results now. Let me give you some examples as you think I'm totally insane. Example, you snap your fingers and 2 months ago, you start eating smaller portions. Poof, you are now 20 pounds lighter right now. Well, yeah. Here's another one. Snap your fingers and 3 months ago, you start going to the gym 3 times a week. Poof, you are noticeably healthier, more fit, and lighter. You can go shopping for some fun clothes today. Want to buy that? If I'm selling that? How much would you pay for that? If that was real, I would pay thousands for it. I'd pay pretty much any price for that. I bet you would too. Because it would be magic. It would be like having a genie. It would be poof. But you'd want to make sure there's no secret drawback because it sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? And of course it is, because we don't have that kind of control over time. We can't send a message backwards. See where I'm going here? You can't send a message backwards to your past self. And I know every single person who's listening has done that. If I could only go back in time, I would tell myself X. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm the sum of my experiences. And for the most part, I think that a lot too, as much as there are some things that I really would love to change. I do think that my experience have brought me to here talking to you. But yes, of course, there are things that if I went back in the past and I changed, I'd be like, because of what I know now, boom. Well, time only moves in one direction for humans. So the statement, if I only knew what I know now, still applies. Think about that. 3 months from now, if I only knew what I know now, I wouldn't do a thing. Well, wait. Wait. You already know that right now. And you'll continue to know that in 3 months. So why didn't you do it? Because you didn't become yourself and then go back and look and go, why didn't I just do that? Because it's the past right now. Right now is the past for your future self. It's you, dummy. Sorry. As a side note, in time travel movies, people always go back in time and they're rude to their past selves. That's actually the way it works. You would be very rude to your past self because there'd be a little bit of condescension. And it's because we know better. We know better and we just are disappointed in ourselves and go, dude. Anyway. We are our future selves to our past, right? But we are also our past selves to our future. I know I can't say this with a straight face because it just sounds so funny, but it's true. We are the past to our future, okay? So we can still send that message, but we have to be the receiver of the message right now. So if we look forward and go, man, 3 months ago, I'm sitting there and going, why didn't I just start that meal program? Why didn't I go get that app that helps me to eat less? Why didn't I just go to the gym one more time? Or why didn't I start reading books sooner? Or why didn't I fill out that balance sheet? That guy is a brilliant guy. That is so smart. And his books are great and I should hire him. The future self will realize that. So why not send a message in the only direction we can, which is forward, right? But we can project and say, hey, if I could send a message back now and I'm me, this is what I would do. So this was kind of a convoluted, humor-filled way to tell you, kind of look forward and go, what would you want to have happen if you could send a message backwards? So this is your guy. Right now, I'm waving my hands. I'm the 2 months ago Mark from 2 months in the future, right? If it's January 1st, then I'm the 2 months ago guy from the March 1st Mark. That's a lot of weight. And people get that. And that's kind of where resolutions come in sometimes. People get that. Like, oh my God, the future is on my shoulders. Oh my God. Don't look at it like that, okay? Because that can be really overwhelming. It's the same kind of overwhelming that I talk about in the 3 a.m. Wake Up Call podcast. So don't let that be overwhelming to you, but instead try to make it a fun thing. Look at your 2-month, 3-month, 2-week, 1-year self with love and admiration and say, that's a better person. That's a better person. Even if I'm still a schlub, it's a better person because I have learned and become wiser and I have had experiences added to my life. So if you take just this one thing away, think about your future self looking back. And think about what your future self would tell you. And then do it. And then what's that next step with the do it? The next step is make time, energy, and resources to get that done. And you know what I'm going to say after that, so I'm not even going to say it. Okay? I'm going to leave it at that because you have been kind enough to listen for almost 20 minutes to my normal 10-minute podcast. So I thank you very much for that. I thank you so much for listening. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year. Happy New Decade to you. I wish you only the best. I truly want you to be happy, successful, and get what you want. And though I'm selling stuff, I ain't selling stuff. Do you know what I mean? I'm still going to be here next week and next week and next week or so and try to help you even further. Because I want to. Because I think this stuff is important. And I think I'm very much enjoying the feedback from people saying, literally someone said, I listened to this podcast and about painting and I picked up my guitar and I started playing. And I know that person still plays his guitar now. And he never would have had he not listened to the podcast about doing that. Or when someone contacts me and says, that really made a lot of sense and I adjusted my perception of things because of that. I really like that. And that's most of the motivation for doing this, is to get this in your ear holes in a way that's pleasant and that doesn't take too much of your time. So I look forward to talking to you more in 2020. Please share this with people you know. Please provide feedback if you want to, or you can silently listen. That's cool too. And take care of yourselves. Thanks. Hey, it's me again. Thanks for listening. 2 things for you. If you like this, I'd really love that you rate it on iTunes or Spotify. Would love to have the stars that are appropriate, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And the other thing is, I do have a new book out, and I would love for you to take a peek at it. It's called The Sword and the Sunflower. It's on Amazon as a Kindle as well as a paperback. Thanks. Just a little blurb at the end here. Take care.